Something happens in every long-term relationship that no one prepares you for. It doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't leave evidence. It happens quietly, like a slow leak in the foundation of something you thought was permanent. You don't even notice it until one day, you're standing in the same room with the person you've loved for 20 years, and you realize she's still there, but the light in her eyes isn't. Time has been working against you both. Not as an enemy, but as a sculptor, carving away at everything that once made you feel alive. And when the sculpting's done, what's left is not youth or beauty or passion, but truth. And truth, my friend, is rarely flattering. Picture her, early 40s. The woman who once laughed so hard she cried. Now she wakes before sunrise, packs the kids' lunches, folds laundry, answers work emails. Her life is efficient, respectable, sterile. And then one morning, while brushing her hair, she catches her reflection, and for a fraction of a second, she doesn't recognize the face staring back. It's not that she's changed beyond recognition. It's that she's forgotten what it felt like to be her. She's not angry at you. She's not even disappointed. She's lost. Because somewhere between diapers, deadlines, and doing everything right, she misplaced her own pulse. And when a woman can't feel herself anymore, she starts looking for something that can make her feel again. That's how it begins. Not with infidelity, but with absence. A quiet emptiness where once there was meaning. The most dangerous betrayals don't start in hotel rooms. They start in mirrors. Most men don't see it happening. They confuse stability with love, routine with devotion. They think a steady life is a safe one. But routine is a slow poison, a repetition that dulls the senses until even affection becomes invisible. Every morning kiss that feels the same. Every conversation that sounds rehearsed. Every touch that feels like maintenance instead of passion. Little by little, love loses its heartbeat. When she starts to fade, you think she's distant. But she's not pulling away from you. She's retreating from a version of herself that no longer feels real. There's a cruel irony in this. You built the life she once wanted, and now that life has become the proof that she's disappeared inside it. This isn't vanity. This is survival. The human brain is addicted to meaning. And when meaning dies, the mind goes searching for a new high. For men, that search looks like ambition, achievement, maybe escape. For women, it's validation. The intoxicating proof that she still exists in someone's eyes. It's not the man at the coffee shop that tempts her. It's what she sees reflected in his gaze. A version of herself she thought was gone. And here's the cruelest part. It's not even about you. She's not running from you. She's running from the woman she became while loving you. The caregiver, the planner, the dependable one. Roles that once made her proud now feel like chains. And when chains are all she can see, freedom begins to look holy, no matter the cost. Time changes people, not just their faces, but their internal chemistry. Desire fades, dopamine dulls. Familiarity rewires the brain until comfort feels like invisibility. At 20, excitement was the drug. At 40, nostalgia is the withdrawal. She doesn't want new adventures. She wants to feel the old electricity again. But memory is a cruel drug. It shows you the high and hides the hangover. A man once told me, "My wife didn't leave me for someone else. She left to feel like someone else." That line has haunted me ever since. Because what he said without knowing was this: her rebellion wasn't against him. It was against time. And how do you fight time? You don't. You disguise it. You paint over it. You call it self-discovery. But underneath all the affirmations, every new haircut, every selfie, there's a whisper she can't silence. You are disappearing. And yet, here's the truth no one admits. Men do the same. They buy motorcycles, chase promotions, flirt with younger women. Different symptoms, same disease. The terror of mortality. We all want to believe we're the exception, that love will freeze time, that loyalty will outlive desire. But it doesn't. Because time is undefeated. It strips us bare until all that's left is what we were really made of. Some people find peace in that. Others find panic. Every wrinkle is a map of every compromise we've made. Every silence at dinner hides 1,000 things we never said. And when she looks at you now, she doesn't just see the man she married. She sees a mirror that reflects everything she's afraid to confront. The years gone, the youth spent, the story that's mostly written. That's why she grows restless. That's why she scrolls through old photos, reconnects with old friends, or suddenly starts talking about finding herself. It's not rebellion, it's resurrection. A desperate attempt to resurrect the version of herself that time quietly buried. But here's the paradox. You can't resurrect who you were without killing who you are. And most people don't survive that war. Every marriage fights 3 battles, with each other, with the world, and with time. Time always wins, but wisdom doesn't have to lose. Because while time steals youth, it also reveals truth, that love isn't supposed to feel like fireworks forever. It's supposed to become something quieter, like gravity, unseen, but always pulling you home. Still, not everyone learns that lesson in time. Some only understand it after they've burned everything to the ground, and that's where the real story begins. The moment when the reflection in the mirror becomes a stranger, and the hunger to feel alive again turns into a fire that consumes everything in its path. They call it a phase. Therapists name it a midlife transition, but those words sound too clean, too clinical, like you could solve it with a few sessions of self-reflection and green tea. What it really feels like is dying while everyone else keeps living. That's the part nobody tells you about. The slow death of identity. The woman who used to know who she was, wife, mother, lover, friend, suddenly feels like a guest in her own skin. It's not that she hates her life, she just can't find herself inside it anymore. There's a moment every woman faces, though most never speak of it. She's standing in a room full of things she once prayed for. A home, a husband, children laughing somewhere down the hall. And she realizes she feels nothing. The walls that once made her feel safe now echo with a silence too loud to bear. It's not depression, it's recognition. The recognition that she's been living for everyone but herself, and the person she was supposed to become has gone missing. At 25, her reflection was a promise. At 45, it's a question she can't answer. The clothes fit, but the soul doesn't. She used to believe identity was something you built. Now she knows it's something you can lose. Society tells her it's hormones, that it's normal, that she should be grateful. But gratitude doesn't silence the voice inside whispering, "Is this it? Is this all I'm meant to be?" That whisper becomes a scream she carries behind polite smiles, behind laughter that doesn't reach her eyes. And one day, it's too heavy to hide. A friend tells her, "You need to find yourself again." So she tries. She joins a gym, buys new clothes, changes her hair. But the truth is, she's not looking for herself. She's looking for proof that she still matters. That someone, somewhere, can still see her as more than a mother, more than a wife, more than a role carved by time. It's not vanity, it's survival. When a person's sense of self collapses, the mind scrambles to rebuild it from anything it can grab. Attention, admiration, adventure. The problem is, those things don't fill the void, they expand it. Every compliment is a breath of air that never lasts long enough. Every thrill fades faster than the last. And soon, the chase becomes the identity. Men do it too. They chase success not because they love it, but because they fear what happens when the applause stops. The human heart is terrified of silence. But silence is where truth lives. Most people run before they hear it. The collapse of identity is the moment life holds up a mirror and asks, "Who are you without what you've built?" And most people can't answer that, because we were never taught to exist without a label. We were taught to perform identity, to be someone's daughter, someone's spouse, someone's provider, someone's prize. When all those roles fade, we mistake their absence for failure. But it's not failure. It's freedom disguised as loss. The tragedy is, few ever see it that way. They panic. They run toward anything that feels new, a flirtation, a project, a dream that promises to bring the old spark back. But it never works, because what's missing isn't excitement, it's essence. They're trying to escape the emptiness when the only way out is through it. I remember a woman who told me, "I left my husband not because I stopped loving him, but because I stopped loving the version of me who loved him." That's what identity collapse does. It doesn't destroy the relationship. It dissolves the self that could hold it together. Philosophers like Carl Jung warned us about this. He called it the death of the persona, the moment when the masks we wear to survive become too heavy to keep holding. The mother, the perfect wife, the achiever, the strong one. Each mask hides the real face until the face underneath forgets how to exist. When the masks crack, people mistake the breaking for madness. But maybe it's the first moment of honesty they've ever had. This collapse is brutal, yes, but it's also sacred, because it's the point where the story can finally change. You cannot rebuild yourself until the old self dies. The question is, will you die consciously or in denial? Most people choose denial, and that's when destruction begins. She doesn't cheat because she's evil. She cheats because for a moment, being desired feels like resurrection. He doesn't withdraw because he's cold. He does it because for a moment, being needed again feels like proof that he still has purpose. Both are starving for validation because they've forgotten how to feed on meaning. But meaning doesn't come from being seen. It comes from seeing yourself clearly. And clarity only comes after collapse. There's a kind of death that doesn't take your body, only your certainty. The woman who wakes up one day and feels like a stranger in her own life is not broken. She's awakening. It just looks like destruction because we fear the unfamiliar. Time strips us all bare eventually. It takes away the illusions we built our worth on. And what's left after that? That's who we truly are. Every identity built on external validation will collapse. Every persona borrowed from duty or desire will eventually burn out. And yet, that's not the end. It's the invitation to begin again, this time, consciously. Every person has two births. The first when we enter the world, and the second when we finally meet ourselves. The collapse is only the beginning, but most people confuse it with the end. And that confusion is where love, loyalty, and sanity start to unravel. Because if you don't know who you are anymore, how can you remember who you loved? The reflection in the mirror grows stranger every day. And one day, she'll stop asking who she is and start chasing anything that can make her forget the question. That's when the hunger begins. And hunger, once awakened, never goes quietly. They never notice the moment it starts. It's so small, so harmless. A compliment from a stranger, a message left unread, a look that lingers 1 second too long. And then something clicks inside her brain, like a switch that had been turned off for years, suddenly flooding the room with light again. It's not about the man. It's about the feeling, the electric spark of being seen. You can almost trace it in her eyes, that microsecond of recognition. She feels alive again, desired, relevant. And for someone who spent years being invisible inside the comfort of routine, that tiny dose of attention feels like oxygen after drowning. The validation trap doesn't arrive with fireworks. It comes wrapped in kindness, a smile, a small act of noticing. And because the world has grown silent around her, that one sound of admiration echoes like thunder. Her husband doesn't understand it. He loves her, still tells her she's beautiful. But his words have become part of the background noise. Expected, safe, guaranteed. What wakes her up isn't affection. It's uncertainty. The thrill of, could this person choose me, even now? That's the drug. And like every addiction, the first hit is the sweetest. The brain's reward system doesn't distinguish between cocaine, gambling, or being told you're beautiful. It only recognizes the surge of dopamine that follows novelty. That's why new attention feels intoxicating. It's not love, it's chemistry. It's intermittent reinforcement. You don't know when you'll get that next message, that next compliment, that next hit. And because you don't know, your brain keeps you chasing it. It's the same loop that keeps gamblers at the slot machine long after they've lost everything. You know the odds are bad, but hope, that tiny glimmer of maybe, keeps your hand on the lever. Now imagine that slot machine is a phone. And every like, every heart, every text, every "you still got it" is another spin. The tragedy isn't that she's shallow. It's that she's starving. For years, her value was defined by what she gave, her time, her love, her patience, her care. Now, for once, she's taking. And taking feels dangerous. It feels good. She doesn't see the trap closing. No one ever does at first. Because validation dresses like affection, talks like intimacy, and feels like connection. But it isn't. It's attention, the currency of modern loneliness. And loneliness, when dressed up as empowerment, becomes addictive. Every scroll, every "you deserve better," every filtered photo, is another line of the same drug. It tells her, you are still in the game. You can still win. And winning feels like survival. The truth is, modern culture engineered this perfectly. We've built an ecosystem that rewards the illusion of relevance. Social media doesn't just sell products, it sells identity. It teaches women that their worth is measured in eyes, in clicks, in hearts. It tells men that their power is measured in control, in success, in dominance. Different scripts, same trap. Because both sides are chasing validation in different languages. Men seek validation in being needed. Women seek validation in being wanted. And when both needs go unmet, the world burns quietly behind polite smiles and happy posts. There's a moment when the trap turns from thrilling to terrifying. It's the moment she realizes she's become dependent on it, that her mood rises and falls on the invisible approval of strangers, that her phone feels like a pulse monitor. Silence means she's fading. Vibration means she's alive. And that realization doesn't free her. It chains her tighter. She begins to perform for the algorithm, a digital masquerade. Every photo calculated, every caption a subtle plea. She tells herself it's just for fun, just confidence, just expression. But inside, the voice that once whispered, "I'm disappearing," now has a new line. At least someone's watching. That's what the validation trap does. It replaces meaning with mirrors. You spend so long staring into them, waiting for the world to reflect something back, that eventually, you forget what your own face looks like. A man once told me he found hundreds of photos on his wife's phone, not of another man, but of herself. Smiling, posing, retouching. He said, "I used to think she was trying to attract someone. Now I think she was trying to prove she existed." That's the saddest part. Validation feels like presence, but it's only proof of absence. Psychologists call it the dopamine economy, a marketplace where your attention is mined and your emotions are traded like currency. But what they don't tell you is how it erodes the soul. Because the more you depend on being seen, the less you remember how to see yourself. The trap doesn't discriminate. Men fall into it too. Different bait, same hunger. The man who checks his ex's profile. The man who measures his worth in likes. The man who hides his loneliness under sarcasm. All addicts of the same drug. Validation isn't gendered. It's human. And it's killing intimacy one notification at a time. There's a scene I can't forget. A woman, 43, sitting alone in her car outside a cafe. Her husband's text flashes, "When will you be home?" She doesn't reply. Instead, she checks her phone again for a message that isn't coming. The man who once messaged her every day stopped 2 weeks ago. She refreshes the screen anyway. She doesn't want him. She wants to feel that spark, the proof she still matters. And the silence that answers her feels like death. The brain doesn't process heartbreak as loss. It processes it as withdrawal. That's why she can't stop checking. That's why he can't stop wondering. It's not love. It's chemistry unbalanced. A system addicted to highs, starving for calm. The validation trap isn't about women going crazy. It's about a world that taught them, taught all of us, that to be unseen is to be nothing. We don't crave connection anymore. We crave confirmation. And confirmation is never enough. That's the cruelest paradox. The more you chase being chosen, the less you feel chosen. Because every yes from the world secretly asks another question. But for how long? The validation trap promises aliveness, but delivers emptiness. It whispers, "You matter," and then demands constant proof. It gives you a stage, but no peace. And when the applause fades, the silence that follows feels unbearable. That's when people do the unthinkable. They chase louder, harder, deeper. trying to drown out the quiet with chaos. They mistake adrenaline for intimacy, novelty for love, and noise for meaning. But attention is not affection, and recognition is not reverence. You can be seen by 1,000,000 people and still not be known by one. That's the truth most never reach until it's too late. When the phone goes quiet, when the compliments stop, when the mirror no longer flatters, they realize they were never looking for validation at all. They were looking for permission to exist. And the saddest part? You don't need permission to exist. You only need courage to face the silence where meaning is reborn. Validation is the cheapest currency in the modern world. It buys attention, but never peace. It makes you visible, but never whole. Somewhere out there, a woman stares at her phone, waiting for a message. Somewhere, a man scrolls through his past, hoping to feel significant again. Both are trapped in the same loop, searching for proof they still matter, forgetting that meaning isn't something you're given. It's something you remember. And until they remember, the hunger will never stop. The rebellion doesn't look like chaos at first. It looks like liberation. It sounds like laughter over wine glasses, the clink of freedom echoing through a dimly lit kitchen where a group of women sit together, nodding to each other's pain like a gospel they all suddenly remember by heart. Someone says, "I realized I deserve better." Another replies, "You're so brave for choosing yourself." And just like that, a new religion is born. This is the modern script of rebellion. It doesn't come with fire or protest signs. It comes wrapped in hashtags, therapy words, and self-love slogans. It promises awakening, but it feeds on panic. It tells her that the only way to heal is to break free. Not from pain, but from the people who once helped her bear it. For centuries, women were told to stay silent. Now, they are told to find their voice. The pendulum swung, but somewhere along the arc we forgot balance. The voice that once whispered, "Stand up for yourself," now screams, "Destroy anything that makes you uncomfortable." The message shifted from empowerment to entitlement, from liberation to erasure. There's a certain seduction in this narrative. It flatters the ego in its most fragile hour. When the validation high fades and the identity collapses, it offers a new identity, the heroine of her own redemption story. She isn't lost anymore. She's finding herself. She isn't running, she's healing. She isn't breaking her vows, she's setting herself free. Words become costumes that disguise destruction as rebirth. It starts with small phrases, harmless at first. "You deserve to be happy. Life is too short. Follow your truth." These lines sound like salvation, but they hide a knife behind their beauty, because no one asks what truth means when emotion is the only compass. No one questions what happiness costs when children are watching from the ruins of what once was a home. The rebellion thrives on comparison. Scroll long enough and you'll see it. Perfectly curated lives of women starting over, glowing under soft filters. Wine glasses raised under captions that say, "New beginnings." The algorithm knows the ache and feeds it. Each post whispers, "Look how free they are." But freedom in pixels is not freedom in life. It's just another cage, prettier, lonelier, Modern culture has turned self-discovery into a marketing strategy. Every insecurity has a price tag. Every wound is an opportunity to sell a cure. The wellness industry tells her to burn the old life down and rebuild it with crystals, mantras, and retreats. But destruction sold as enlightenment is still destruction. Healing that depends on escape isn't healing, it's flight. I remember a man telling me about his wife's transformation. She'd been struggling, restless, uncertain. Then she met a new group of friends, divorced, confident, all talking about how they finally felt alive again. They called themselves the Reborn. Within months, she changed everything. Her wardrobe, her phone habits, her weekends. She started saying things like, "I'm done being small and I can't live a lie anymore." He said, "I didn't even recognize the way she looked at me. It wasn't hate, it was absence." That's how the modern rebellion works. It replaces guilt with language, and language with performance. The world applauds the performance. The crowd cheers louder the more she burns. Because nothing sells like self-destruction dressed as courage. The talk shows praise her bravery. The magazines call her an inspiration. The hashtags celebrate her new chapter. But the camera never pans to the children sitting in therapy years later, trying to understand why mom's freedom felt like their loss. No one blames her because no one questions her feelings. Feelings have become sacred, untouchable, unquestionable. But the problem with worshiping feelings is that they change faster than truth does. A person who worships emotion ends up kneeling to chaos. The rebellion is never really about love. It's about fear. The fear of insignificance, the terror of aging, the anxiety of being ordinary. When those fears go unexamined, they wear the mask of empowerment. The mantra, "I'm doing this for me," often hides the plea, "Tell me I still matter." And yet, society doesn't just permit this, it celebrates it. Because rebellion is profitable. Discontent drives consumption. Make her feel caged, and she'll pay anything to feel free. Make her feel unworthy, and she'll buy the cure. Every industry that sells freedom runs on the same fuel, the illusion of control. Meanwhile, men watch helplessly, labeled as obstacles in someone else's awakening. The narrative paints them as outdated, oppressive, emotionally unavailable. They become characters in a story they didn't write, villains in someone's self-liberation arc. They are told to work on themselves, to support her journey, even as she walks out the door with the house still warm from breakfast. But rebellion without reflection isn't growth. It's regression in disguise. True liberation doesn't destroy. It transcends. The difference is quiet, subtle, and inconvenient. Too inconvenient for viral quotes or glossy covers. Because real freedom isn't about doing whatever you want. It's about wanting what's real. When the noise fades, rebellion always meets reality. Bills still arrive. Loneliness still lingers. The new lover still snores. Still forgets birthdays. Still disappoints. The new life feels suspiciously like the old one, only emptier. And the world that once cheered her on doesn't stay to help her rebuild. The audience moves on to the next show. The applause fades. She's left with the silence she was running from. And maybe in that silence, the truth finally returns. Not the truth of youth, or beauty, or validation, but the truth she abandoned when she called comfort a prison. She learns, too late, that freedom without purpose is just another form of captivity. The modern rebellion tells her she can be anything. It forgets to ask what's worth being. It tells her she can have everything. It forgets to mention that everything isn't meaning. It tells her to live her truth, but never how to recognize it. When desire and truth no longer speak the same language. Every generation rewrites rebellion. Ours simply renamed loneliness. We called it independence. We packaged it in self-help. We filtered it into empowerment. But if you look closely, you'll see it for what it really is. The same old panic, the same old hunger, dressed in designer words. The world told her she was brave for walking away. Maybe she was. But bravery without wisdom isn't freedom. It's fire without light. And fire, no matter how bright, always burns out. Some nights, she lies awake beside the stranger she chose, scrolling through the life she left. Her friends call it healing. Her heart calls it regret. And somewhere deep down, beneath all the affirmations, beneath the slogans and the noise, she whispers the same prayer she once mocked. I just want peace. But peace doesn't come through rebellion. It comes through reckoning. And reckoning, like love, always asks for something in return. No one ever films the morning after the rebellion. The wine glasses are gone. The laughter fades. And the house smells like dust and quiet. There are no filters for that kind of silence. There's only the echo, the ghost of a life that once breathed around you. You think freedom will sound like music, but it doesn't. It sounds like absence. She thought leaving would feel like flight, like oxygen rushing back into starved lungs. But freedom, when you have no one to share it with, quickly turns into loneliness with better lighting. The world clapped when she walked away. They told her she was brave, that she was choosing herself. But when the applause stopped, no one told her what to do with the silence that followed. In the beginning, she kept busy. New routines, new wardrobe, new man, new city. Reinvention feels powerful when you're still high on adrenaline. But the truth about reinvention is that it doesn't erase the past, it only rearranges it. Memories don't vanish, they haunt differently. A smell, a song, a child's voice saying "Dad" in the wrong house. It's all still there, replaying in a loop, softer but never gone. No one wants to talk about that part, the second loneliness. The first loneliness comes from feeling unseen inside the old life. The second comes from realizing the new one isn't saving you either. It's the loneliness that doesn't have anyone to blame, the one that creeps in when the night is too long and the phone too quiet. When even the man she left for stops being exciting and starts being human. You can tell when it hits. Her social media posts slow down. The captions turn vague, the smiles a little forced. The glow of new beginnings fades into the soft gray of normalcy, and normal is the one thing she thought she'd escaped. But normal always returns, because life, no matter how beautifully we break it, always demands structure again. They never post the photos of what comes next. The bills, the therapy sessions, the nights she eats dinner alone at a table built for four. The way her children speak more softly now, as if afraid she might leave again. The realization that freedom came with a tax she can't afford, one measured not in money, but in meaning. A man once told me his wife left him at 42. A year later, she tried to come back. She said she missed the house, the smell of coffee in the morning, the sound of their son's laughter. But what she really missed was safety. The kind of peace you can only appreciate after setting it on fire. He said, I let her in, but she never really returned. She came back as a ghost wearing my wife's skin. That's the thing about aftermaths. They're irreversible. You can rebuild the walls, but not the trust. You can sleep in the same bed, but not in the same innocence. Once you've chosen chaos, The memory of it never leaves your bloodstream. You spend the rest of your life chasing normal, but normal doesn't want you back. Society never shows you this part because it ruins the fantasy. It's bad for the narrative. It's easier to sell transformation than to admit that most transformations are just detours to regret. It's easier to say she found herself than to face the truth. She found that herself was lonelier than she imagined. And yet, it's not just women who suffer here. Men drown in their own silence too. They just do it differently. He sits in the empty living room, staring at the couch she once filled, wondering if there was ever a version of him that could have been enough. He replays every fight, every word, every moment he dismissed her pain as mood swings or hormones. And the worst part isn't the betrayal. It's realizing he didn't see her slipping away because he was slipping too. Children feel it most. They don't understand ideology or empowerment. They only understand loss. They divide their weeks between two houses that smell different, that love differently. They become diplomats in a war they never started. They learn too early that love is conditional, that stability is temporary, that people can vanish while still alive. These are the casualties no one writes about. The broken families behind hashtags about healing. The fathers who still show up at school events pretending not to notice the man sitting next to their ex-wife. The mothers who stare out car windows wondering if the silence they fought so hard for was worth the noise they left behind. This is the aftermath nobody talks about, because it's not glamorous. It doesn't fit the language of empowerment or the rhythm of self-love podcasts. It's raw, inconvenient, unmarketable. It's the hangover after a decade-long high. Every rebellion has a cost, and the modern one demands payment in intimacy, connection, and the quiet dignity of staying. The problem is, the bill doesn't arrive immediately. It comes years later, disguised as regret. By the time it shows up, there's no refund, only reflection. The saddest truth is this: most people don't regret leaving. They regret what they expected freedom to feel like. They thought liberation would heal the ache, but it only moved it somewhere new. The emptiness didn't disappear, it just changed address. Sometimes at night, she dreams of her old life. Not the arguments or the routine, but the warmth. The ordinary mornings. The quiet safety of being loved without having to perform for it. And in those dreams, she finds herself whispering into the dark. Maybe that was love after all. There's no villain in this story. Only people at war with themselves, fighting ghosts of youth and meaning. The aftermath is not punishment. It's the consequence of forgetting what love actually is. Love isn't freedom from responsibility. It's choosing someone even when you have the freedom to leave. The world doesn't tell you that, because there's nothing to sell in commitment. No one profits from contentment. Peace doesn't trend. But the truth remains. The high of rebellion fades, and all that's left is what you destroyed to feel it. Eventually, everyone meets their own silence. The followers stop watching. The stories stop being told. And all the noise that once kept you distracted dissolves into the sound of your own breathing. And in that breathing, if you listen closely enough, you'll hear the faintest sound of truth returning. Not loud, not triumphant, just honest. You can rebuild after the aftermath, but what you rebuild will never be what you left. It will be something quieter, something humbler. A house built not on the thrill of feeling alive, but on the grace of choosing to stay. Freedom was never the enemy. Forgetting what to do with it was. And the hardest part of all? Sometimes, the only way to learn that is to lose everything first. Every story about loss eventually reaches the same crossroad, the space between panic and peace. Some people never find it. They stay on the run, sprinting from one distraction to another, terrified of the silence waiting behind them. Others stop. They turn around and face what's chasing them. The truth that time has always been the only real opponent. Panic is seductive. It feels like motion. It convinces you that if you just keep moving to a new partner, a new job, a new city, you can outpace the ache. But peace is the opposite. Peace asks you to stand still while the waves crash around you. It asks for surrender, not escape. And that's why so few choose it. When the aftermath fades and the smoke clears, what remains is not the chaos you escaped, but the person you became escaping it. And for many, that reflection is unbearable. You see the lines on your face differently now, not as proof of age, but as evidence of everything you've run from. You see how many moments were wasted trying to feel alive, instead of being alive. You see how often you traded connection for attention, meaning for motion. There's a kind of mourning that has nothing to do with death. It happens when you realize the person you once were will never return. She's gone, not because you killed her, but because she outlived her purpose. You can grieve her, or you can learn from her. Most people do neither. They just keep pretending she's still somewhere ahead, waiting to be rediscovered, not understanding that the path to peace begins only after the funeral of who you were. He feels it too, the quiet reckoning that comes after survival. The anger fades, the resentment softens, and in its place arrives something far more dangerous: understanding. He begins to see her not as the villain of his story, but as a mirror. Her rebellion was his reflection. Two people drowning differently in the same sea of time. He remembers his own panic, the way he buried his fear in work, in control, in silence. He realizes they were never fighting each other. They were both fighting the same thing: the terror of impermanence. That's the hidden thread running through every human story. Beneath every argument, every heartbreak, every desperate act of escape, it's always the same enemy. Not her, not him. Time, the slow, relentless eraser of everything we love. But here's the secret time never tells you. It only takes away what you refuse to see. If you can look at what's fading without clinging to it, you begin to understand that nothing real is ever lost. The body ages, yes. Desire shifts. Faces change. But presence, the act of being here, truly here, that doesn't decay. It deepens. Peace doesn't mean you stop missing what you had. It means you stop needing it to stay the same. It's the quiet acceptance that the story was never meant to be eternal, only meaningful while it lasted. That realization doesn't come from therapy or philosophy. It comes from exhaustion. The kind of exhaustion that finally makes you too tired to keep pretending you can outsmart time. Some nights, she still scrolls through old photos. Not to relive them, but to remember what was true. The laughter, the small hands, the mornings that smelled like coffee and routine. She doesn't ache to go back anymore. She just bows to it, the way you bow to something sacred that's past. Gratitude doesn't erase pain, but it gives pain a home. somewhere it can rest without consuming you. And he, sitting miles away, does the same in his own way. He no longer waits for her text. He no longer replays the ending. He's stopped trying to make sense of the collapse. Instead, he's learning to live in the space between memory and acceptance. There's no triumph in it, no dramatic closure, just stillness, the kind that feels like forgiveness. Peace doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with a chorus or a revelation. It comes quietly, like dawn slipping through a half-open curtain. You only notice it when the panic has finally exhausted itself, when the heart is too tired to keep begging for more. And in that stillness, a new kind of strength appears. Not the loud, cinematic kind, but the kind that lets you breathe again without flinching. The world won't celebrate this stage. There are no hashtags for humility, no applause for learning how to stay. But this is the real revolution, to choose calm in a culture that glorifies chaos, to choose depth when the world worships dopamine, to stay present when everything around you screams for escape. There's a wisdom that only heartbreak can teach, the understanding that love is not a promise of constant pleasure, but an invitation to grow together through inevitable change. Love isn't the fire, it's the hearth, the place you return to after the fire has burned out. It's not supposed to thrill you forever. It's supposed to hold you steady when nothing else will. For her, peace doesn't look like the old life, or the new one. It looks like stillness, a morning where she makes coffee alone and doesn't feel broken by it. A sunset she watches without needing to be watched. A mirror she can finally look into without shame, because the face staring back isn't a stranger anymore. For him, peace isn't getting her back. It's getting himself back. It's realizing that forgiveness doesn't excuse the past. It simply refuses to let the past be the prison. It's remembering that his worth was never measured by how long someone stayed, but by how deeply he learned. The truth is, time always wins. It will take beauty, strength, even memory, but it cannot touch awareness. Awareness is eternal, and once you learn to see through the illusion, to love not what was, but what is, you stop fighting time and start walking with it. That's where peace lives, not in perfection, not in reunion, but in presence. The moment you stop chasing the past or rehearsing the future, you find yourself exactly where meaning has always been hiding, here. And maybe that's what all the heartbreak was trying to teach from the beginning, that the goal was never to stay young or adored or unbroken. It was to become awake. The panic was the noise before awakening. The loss was the clearing. The silence was the invitation. And peace is simply what happens when you finally say yes.